Have you ever wondered why someone suddenly starts thinking about you nonstop, texting you out of nowhere, feeling drawn to you even when they tried to move on? What if I told you it's not coincidence? The moment you change your inner world, your specific person begins to feel your energy pulling them back like a magnet. And after today, they will not be able to resist it anymore. Your specific person is not separate from your consciousness. In the teachings of Neville Goddard, the world reflects your assumptions, emotions, and inner conversations. When you stop chasing and start embodying the version of yourself who is already loved, chosen, and desired, something powerful happens. They begin to feel an irresistible pull towards you naturally. You must understand something that changes everything about love, attraction, and the way people respond to you. The moment you begin chasing another person, you unknowingly place them above you in your mind. You begin to look at them as the source of your happiness, your validation, your worth. And from that state, every action becomes filled with fear. Every text carries desperation. Every silence feels painful. Every delay feels personal. You start watching their behavior instead of mastering your own consciousness. But the world does not respond to what you beg for. It responds to what you believe yourself to be. So if you continue saying, "I need them to choose me," you are affirming that you are not already chosen. If you keep asking, "Why are they distant?" you continue to recreate distance. You must become aware of the story you are repeating within yourself, because that inner story is shaping everything you experience. Stop trying to force love to happen. Stop trying to manipulate the outer world. Stop exhausting yourself searching for signs, checking messages, rereading conversations, wondering what they feel every second of the day. The more you chase, the more you affirm separation. And what you continuously affirm, you continue to experience. Instead, become still within yourself. Ask yourself, who would I be if I already knew I was deeply loved? How would I think? How would I walk into a room? How would I speak? How would I feel waking up in the morning? That version of you is the secret, not the fearful version, not the anxious version, not the version waiting by the phone hoping to be noticed, the version of you who already knows they are unforgettable. That is the self you must embody, because people do not fall in love with desperation. They are drawn to certainty. They are drawn to energy that feels complete within itself. There is something magnetic about a person who no longer begs for attention because they already feel worthy inside. And when you shift into that state, your entire reality begins to reorganize around you. You see, the outer world is only reflecting the inner world. Always, without exception, if you feel abandoned within, you will continue meeting abandonment outside of you. If you feel unwanted within, the world mirrors that assumption back to you in painful ways. But the moment you begin assuming, "I am valued, I am desired, I am chosen naturally," people begin responding differently without even realizing why. Your specific person is not separate from the energy you hold about yourself. They are responding to the version of you that you are conscious of being. So stop identifying as the person who was rejected. Stop identifying as the person who was left behind. Stop replaying old conversations and old disappointments in your mind. That is the old self. And if you continue feeding the old self emotionally, you keep recreating the same reality. A new reality requires a new identity. You must become the person who no longer fears losing love, because they understand love flows to them naturally. You must carry yourself with inner conviction long before the outer world confirms it. That is faith, that is true power. And at first your mind may resist it. The old story will try to pull you back. You may feel tempted to look for evidence. But do not return to the state of chasing. Do not abandon yourself again trying to gain someone else. Remain faithful to the version of yourself who already has what they desire. Because the moment you stop chasing externally, something extraordinary begins happening internally. You become calmer, lighter, more attractive, more grounded. Your energy changes completely. And people feel that shift. They may not understand it logically, but they feel it emotionally. Suddenly, the person who ignored you begins thinking about you constantly. The person who seemed distant starts feeling curious about you again. They feel drawn towards you without understanding why. Because your energy is no longer screaming lack. It is radiating certainty. And certainty is powerful. When you become the embodiment of love instead of the seeker of love, the entire dynamic changes. You are speaking to your specific person every single day, even when no words are exchanged in the physical world. Most people do not realize this. They believe communication only happens through text messages, phone calls, or face-to-face conversations. But the most powerful conversations are the ones happening silently within your own mind. Listen carefully to the voice you entertain throughout the day. When you wake up thinking, "They are losing interest in me," you are having an inner conversation. When you imagine them ignoring you, choosing someone else, forgetting about you, you are mentally rehearsing an experience. And because your imagination is creative power, those repeated inner conversations eventually harden into facts. People believe others are acting independently, completely separate from their assumptions. But over and over again, life reflects the dominant story you hold within yourself. The outer world mirrors the inner dialogue you repeat emotionally. That is why two people can experience completely different versions of the same person. One feels adored, prioritized, pursued. The other feels ignored, confused, unwanted. The difference is not luck. The difference is the inner conversation each person consistently entertains. If deep within yourself you are constantly hearing, "Why don't they love me? Why are they pulling away? Why am I never enough?" then you are unconsciously assigning them a role in your reality, and they begin playing that role perfectly. You must become aware of this, because awareness changes everything. Pay attention to what you whisper to yourself when nobody else is around. Notice the imaginary arguments you replay in your head. Notice how often you mentally prepare for rejection before anything has even happened. Many people spend entire days unconsciously affirming the very reality they desperately want to escape. And then they wonder why nothing changes. The mind responds not to occasional positive words, but to the story repeated with feeling. A fearful thought charged with emotion becomes powerful. A repeated assumption becomes a command impressed upon the subconscious mind. So if you want your specific person to change, you must first change the conversations taking place within you. Stop mentally hearing them say hurtful things. Stop replaying old disappointments. Stop reliving the moment they ignored you, rejected you, or walked away. Every time you replay the old story emotionally, you revive it. You give it life again. And then the outer world faithfully reflects it back to you. Instead, begin creating new conversations inwardly. Hear them telling you, "I cannot stop thinking about you." Hear them saying, "Being with you feels different." Hear them confessing the love you long to hear. But do not repeat these words mechanically. Feel them as real. Let the scene become natural within your mind. Experience the emotional reality of already being loved instead of longing to be loved. This is where transformation begins. Your subconscious mind does not know the difference between an imagined experience and a physical one when emotion is involved. What you persistently feel to be true internally eventually becomes projected outwardly as your experience. That is why your inner conversations matter so deeply. They are not harmless thoughts drifting through your mind. They are creative acts. They are shaping the emotional atmosphere around your relationships. And the fascinating thing is this. People often begin reflecting your assumptions without realizing it themselves. A person who seemed cold suddenly becomes affectionate. Someone distant suddenly reaches out. Someone who disappeared begins thinking about you constantly. To them, it feels natural. They may even believe the thoughts are entirely their own. But what changed first was your inner world. The moment you stop inwardly criticizing, fearing, doubting, and expecting rejection, the entire relationship begins shifting, because the energy behind your assumptions changes. Most people are trying to change another person directly, while continuing to entertain the same inner conversations every day. That is like planting weeds and praying for flowers. You cannot continuously imagine abandonment and expect devotion. You cannot inwardly prepare for heartbreak while hoping for lasting love. The mind must become disciplined. Whenever fear appears, redirect the conversation. Whenever doubt appears, replace it. Whenever the old story returns, refuse to emotionally feed it. Because whatever you consistently speak within yourself becomes the script life follows. And when your inner speech changes long enough, Your reality has no choice but to echo it back to you. Most people think manifestation is about words. They repeat affirmations all day long, hoping that if they say something enough times, reality will suddenly change. But words without feeling are empty. You can say, "They love me 1,000 times," but if deep inside you feel abandoned, unwanted, or anxious, it is the feeling that impresses the subconscious mind, not the words themselves. Feeling is the true language of creation. Your emotional state is always revealing what you truly believe to be real. You may try to convince yourself outwardly, but inwardly your feelings tell the story. If you constantly feel fear, you are occupying the state of fear. If you constantly feel chosen, loved, secure, and valued, then you are occupying the state of fulfillment. And life always reflects the state you consistently dwell in. That is why some people chase manifestations for years without success. They are speaking positive words while emotionally living in disappointment. They affirm love while feeling lonely. They affirm commitment while feeling rejected. The subconscious does not respond to forced repetition. It responds to emotional conviction. You must understand this deeply. Your feeling is the secret, because your feeling determines your state of consciousness. And your state of consciousness creates your reality. So stop focusing only on what you are saying. Begin asking yourself, what am I feeling every day? What emotional atmosphere am I living in? Because if you spend your days worrying about when they will text you, whether they still care, whether someone else has their attention, then you are emotionally living in separation. And that feeling continues reproducing itself in your experience. You cannot create love from panic. You cannot create devotion from fear. You cannot attract closeness while emotionally preparing for abandonment. The emotional state must change first. You must begin feeling as though your desire is already fulfilled. Not someday, not in the future. Now, how would you feel if your specific person already adored you? If they were already thinking about you constantly? If there was no doubt in your mind about their love? You would feel calm. You would not be checking your phone every 5 minutes. You would not be overanalyzing every interaction. You would not feel desperate for reassurance, because inwardly you would already know. That feeling of certainty is powerful. And this is where many people struggle, because they are waiting for the outer world to give them permission to feel secure. But the outer world is only a mirror. It can only reflect the emotional state you first accept within yourself. So you must become emotionally disciplined. When fear rises, do not surrender to it. When doubt whispers to you, do not feed it. Restore yourself to the feeling of already being loved, not by forcing emotion, but by gently entering the experience inwardly. Close your eyes and imagine them beside you. Hear their voice, feel their affection. Experience the relief, the joy, the naturalness of already having what you desire. And then remain faithful to that feeling. This is not pretending. This is selecting a new state of consciousness. The world you experience externally is always delayed evidence of what you have emotionally accepted internally. That is why persistence matters. If you constantly return to the feeling of fulfillment, eventually your outer reality must conform to it. People often ask why someone suddenly reaches out after weeks or months of silence. Why they suddenly become affectionate, emotional, obsessed, or unable to stop thinking about someone. What changed was not force. What changed was energy. The inner emotional state shifted first, because emotions are magnetic. When you embody the feeling of being deeply loved, your behavior changes naturally. Your energy softens. Your fear dissolves. You stop grasping for validation. And there is something incredibly attractive about a person who already feels whole within themselves. Others feel it. Your specific person feels it, even at a distance. People respond to the emotional assumptions you carry about yourself and about them. They begin reflecting the state you consistently occupy. So if you wish to experience love, stop rehearsing pain emotionally. Stop living in longing. Stop identifying with separation. Feel the relationship as real now. Feel chosen now. Feel adored now. Feel secure now. Because the moment the feeling becomes natural within you, the outer world begins moving to match it. One of the greatest misunderstandings people have about manifestation is this idea that holding on tightly will somehow make their desire appear faster. So they obsess, they overthink, They watch every movement in the outer world searching for confirmation. They check social media, reread old messages, analyze silence, and emotionally chase what they desire from morning until night. But attachment is not love. Attachment is fear wearing the mask of love. When you are deeply attached to an outcome, you are unconsciously declaring, I do not have it. And the subconscious mind faithfully mirrors that state back to you. The more desperate your energy becomes, the more resistance you feel. Not because your desire is impossible, but because you are identified with not having it. You must understand this clearly. The power is not in forcing. The power is in knowing. Detachment is not giving up on your desire. It is releasing the fear surrounding it. It is no longer placing your emotional stability in the hands of another person's actions. It is quiet confidence of someone who already knows what is theirs cannot escape them. There is a tremendous difference between wanting something and needing it in order to feel complete. The moment you need someone to text you so you can feel valued, you have abandoned your own power. The moment you need external movement before you allow yourself to feel secure, you become emotionally dependent on appearances. And appearances are always shifting. You cannot build peace on unstable foundations. That is why detachment becomes so powerful. It reconnects you to yourself. It frees you from emotional slavery to the outer world. Instead of constantly reacting to circumstances, you begin creating from within. Imagine the difference between these two states. One person wakes up anxious, wondering, why haven't they contacted me yet? What if they moved on? What if they forgot me? Their entire emotional state depends on external validation. Another person wakes up calm. They already feel loved internally. They trust the unseen movement taking place behind the scenes. They are not shaken by temporary silence because they understand reality is rearranging itself according to their dominant assumptions. Which energy feels more magnetic? People are naturally drawn towards certainty. They feel safe around someone who is emotionally grounded within themselves. But when someone is clinging, fearful, and emotionally grasping for reassurance, that energy pushes love away. Detachment restores your magnetism because it removes desperation from your energy. And the beautiful thing is this: when you stop obsessing over the physical world, you finally create space for transformation to happen. Most people delay their manifestation by constantly checking for evidence. Every day they look around asking, where is it? Why is nothing changing? But every time you question the absence of your desire, you emotionally return to the state of not having it. You must stop interrogating reality. The outer world is only reflecting past assumptions. It is delayed. It is old news. If you continue reacting emotionally to current circumstances, you keep recreating the same patterns over and over again. Detachment allows you to remain faithful to the unseen. It allows you to say, even if I cannot see movement yet, I know something is shifting. That inner stability is incredibly powerful because it means you are no longer controlled by appearances. And strangely enough, this is often the moment things begin moving fastest. The moment you stop chasing, they begin thinking about you. The moment you stop forcing, they begin reaching out. The moment you release fear, they begin feeling your absence. Why? Because your energy changes completely. You are no longer broadcasting lack. You are no longer affirming separation. You are no longer emotionally begging reality to change. You become relaxed, present, certain. And certainty has a magnetic quality that cannot be explained logically. Detachment is not coldness. It is not pretending you do not care. It is the peaceful confidence of knowing your desire already exists vibrationally, even before it appears physically. It is trusting the unseen more than the temporary appearance of circumstances. And once you reach that state, you stop chasing love because you realize love was never outside of you to begin with. Everything in your world is shaped by the way you see yourself. Not occasionally, not sometimes, always. Your relationships, your experiences, the way people treat you, the love you receive, the respect you command, all of it flows from your self-concept. Most people spend years trying to change others while never realizing the real source of the problem lives within their own identity. They say, why does this person ignore me? Why do I always get abandoned? Why does love never stay? But they never stop to ask the deeper question. What do I believe about myself that keeps creating these experiences? Because the world does not simply respond to your words. It responds to the version of yourself you consistently accept as true. If deep within you believe you are difficult to love, people reflect that assumption. If you secretly believe you are not enough, reality organizes itself around proving that belief to you again and again. Not because life is punishing you, but because consciousness always expresses what it accepts as true. You cannot repeatedly identify as unwanted and then expect to feel consistently chosen in your relationships. The outer world can only mirror your inner identity. That is why self-concept changes everything. The moment you change the way you see yourself, people begin responding differently without even understanding why. You become more magnetic, more respected, more desired. Not because you forced anyone to change, but because your energy shifted at the source. Many people are trying to manifest a specific person while secretly feeling unworthy of love. They affirm during the day, but internally they still feel replaceable, insecure, and fearful. And those hidden assumptions continue shaping their reality. You must become aware of the identity you are carrying. Are you walking through life as someone who expects disappointment? Do you secretly assume people leave? Do you constantly fear rejection the moment you become emotionally attached? Then that fear becomes your reality because consciousness expresses itself automatically. But imagine waking up every day with a completely different identity. Imagine truly believing, I am unforgettable, I am deeply valued, I naturally inspire love and devotion, I am always chosen. Feel the difference in that energy. A person who carries that self-concept moves differently through the world. They do not beg for attention because they already feel worthy internally. They do not panic when circumstances fluctuate because their confidence is rooted within themselves, not in temporary appearances. And people feel that. Never underestimate how powerfully your self-concept influences the behavior of others. Human beings constantly respond to the emotional assumptions you hold about yourself. If you expect love, appreciation, and respect naturally, you unconsciously communicate that expectation through your energy, your reactions, your presence. But if you expect abandonment, inconsistency, or rejection, you unknowingly invite experiences that confirm those fears. The outer world is a mirror. It reflects the identity you consistently occupy. This is why changing self-concept is not vanity. It is transformation at the deepest level. It is no longer identifying as the wounded version of yourself created by past experiences. You are not your past heartbreaks. You are not the person who was ignored. You are not the old story you keep replaying emotionally. Every moment gives you the opportunity to assume a new identity. And once you accept a new concept of yourself, reality begins reshaping itself around that assumption. The specific person who once seemed distant can suddenly become attentive. The person who gave mixed signals can suddenly become clear and devoted. The relationship changes because your inner identity changed first. Most people try to change circumstances directly while remaining the same person internally. But you cannot carry the consciousness of rejection and expect the experience of lasting love. You must become the version of yourself who naturally receives what you desire, not through force, not through pretending, but through inner acceptance. And this takes persistence, because the old self will try to return. Old insecurities may rise, old fears may whisper familiar stories, but do not return to identifying with limitation. Each day, choose again. Choose the identity of someone worthy of extraordinary love. Choose the self who feels secure, valued, desired, and irreplaceable. Choose the version of yourself who no longer seeks validation because they already know their worth internally. Because once your self-concept changes, the world around you cannot remain the same. Most people live their entire lives waiting for evidence, waiting for a message, waiting for someone to change, waiting for the outer world to finally give them permission to feel happy, secure, and loved. But as long as you wait for reality to change first, you remain trapped in the state of not having what you desire. You must understand this deeply. Creation does not begin in the outer world. It begins within consciousness. The moment you assume your desire is already fulfilled, something shifts inside you. You stop chasing. You stop doubting every moment. You stop reacting emotionally to appearances because inwardly you already know it is done. That is the secret most people miss. They desire something intensely, but internally they continue identifying with absence. They keep noticing what is missing. They keep saying, "It's not here yet." And every time they do that, they return themselves to the state of longing rather than fulfillment. You cannot experience the reality of love while emotionally remaining in the state of waiting for love. You must dare to assume the wish is already fulfilled before the physical world confirms it. Not tomorrow, not after they text you, not after circumstances improve. Now, ask yourself honestly, if your specific person already loved you completely, how would you feel today? Would you be anxious? Would you constantly check your phone? Would you overanalyze every little thing they say? No, you would feel relaxed, certain, secure, natural. That emotional state is the doorway. You are not trying to force reality. You are selecting a state of consciousness. And once you occupy that state consistently, the outer world begins reshaping itself to mirror it. Most people keep falling into the trap of reacting to current circumstances. They see no movement, so they feel discouraged. They experience silence, so they assume rejection. But the outer world is only reflecting old assumptions. It is delayed. It is echoing who you used to be conscious of being. Do not let temporary appearances pull you out of the state you desire to occupy. Remain faithful inwardly, even when nothing seems to be happening externally. This is where true transformation happens. When you close your eyes at night, do not imagine yourself hoping. Imagine yourself already receiving. Feel their arms around you. Hear their voice telling you how much they love you. Experience the relief of knowing the relationship is already secure. And above all, let it feel natural. The subconscious accepts what feels natural, not what feels forced. If you strain emotionally wondering whether it will happen, you are still identifying with uncertainty. But when you quietly accept the desire as already real within yourself, your energy changes completely. You begin thinking differently, reacting differently, feeling differently, and life responds to that shift. People often ask how manifestations happen so suddenly. They wonder why someone who disappeared suddenly returns, why communication opens unexpectedly, why situations transform seemingly overnight. But nothing truly happens suddenly. The shift first occurred within consciousness. The moment you fully accepted the new reality inwardly, movement began invisibly. You may not see it immediately, but unseen bridges of events are already unfolding. Thoughts are shifting. Emotions are shifting. Circumstances are rearranging themselves naturally. Your specific person may begin thinking about you constantly without understanding why. They may feel an urge to contact you. They may suddenly remember your energy, your presence, your connection. All because your inner state changed first. But this only happens when you stop living in doubt and begin living in assumption. Do not ask, when will it happen? Ask, can I remain faithful to the feeling that it already has? Because the version of you who already has the relationship exists now. And the more you emotionally identify with that version of yourself, the faster reality reorganizes around it. Faith is not pretending. Faith is inner acceptance. It is the quiet certainty that what you desire is already yours, even before the senses confirm it. And when you truly enter that state, fear begins disappearing. You stop forcing. You stop searching for signs. You stop needing constant reassurance, because inwardly you already know the outcome. You are no longer living from desire. You are living from fulfillment. There will come moments when nothing around you appears to change. Days when the silence feels heavy. Moments when the outer world looks exactly the same, and your mind begins whispering dangerous questions. What if this is not working? What if they never come back? What if I am fooling myself? And this is the moment that separates those who transform their reality from those who return to the same painful cycle. Because the truth is, reality does not always change the instant you plant a new assumption. Just because you cannot yet see movement does not mean movement is not happening. The seed beneath the soil appears invisible long before it breaks through the surface. Most people give up too early. They impress a new assumption upon the mind for a few days, maybe a week, and then they look to the outer world for confirmation. When they do not immediately see evidence, They become discouraged and return to fear, doubt, and old thinking. And by returning emotionally to the old state, they recreate the same reality again. You must understand this clearly. Persistence is what gives power to your assumption. An occasional positive thought changes nothing. A temporary emotional high changes nothing. What transforms reality is the sustained occupation of a new state of consciousness. You must persist in the new story even when the old reality still stands before you. That is faith. Anyone can believe when circumstances already look favorable. But can you remain loyal to the unseen? Can you continue feeling chosen when the outer world temporarily shows silence? Can you continue embodying love when old fears try to return? That is where your power is tested. The outer world is delayed. It is reflecting old assumptions, old fears, old emotional patterns you once accepted as true. Do not panic when you still see traces of the old reality. It is only an echo of your previous state. What matters is who you are being now. Every day you persist in the assumption of being loved, valued, and chosen, you are planting deeper roots within the subconscious mind. And eventually those assumptions harden into facts. Not because you forced reality, but because consciousness consistently expresses what you persist in feeling to be true. Most people are inconsistent with their inner world. One moment they feel hopeful, and the next moment they collapse into fear because of something they saw in the outer world. They allow circumstances to determine their state instead of allowing their state to determine circumstances. Do not live that way anymore. You must become inwardly stable. If you have assumed that your specific person loves you deeply, then remain faithful to that assumption regardless of temporary appearances. Do not keep digging up the seed to check if it is growing. Leave it alone. Trust the process unfolding beneath the surface, because reality is always moving, even when your eyes cannot yet perceive it. There are unseen bridges of events unfolding every day. Thoughts are shifting in people's minds. Emotions are changing. Circumstances are rearranging themselves in ways you could never predict logically. And often, everything changes at once after a long period where nothing appeared to happen. Suddenly they reach out. Suddenly they confess their feelings. Suddenly they cannot stop thinking about you. Suddenly they return completely different. But what appears sudden in the outer world was actually built through persistent inner assumption. This is why you cannot afford to quit emotionally. The moment you return to the old story, the story of rejection, abandonment, fear, and separation, you slow down the transformation you were creating. The subconscious responds to consistency. Persist in seeing yourself as chosen. Persist in hearing loving conversations within your mind. Persist in feeling secure even before external proof arrives. And most importantly, stop measuring progress by appearances. Your job is not to force the how. Your job is not to manipulate time. Your job is not to obsess over when it will happen. Your only responsibility is to remain faithful to the state you desire to occupy, because every assumption held with persistence eventually solidifies into physical reality. No power in the outer world can stop a state of consciousness that is consistently sustained. If you continue returning to the feeling of fulfillment, the world must eventually mirror it back to you. Reality has no choice. It can only reflect who you persist in being. Your specific person is already moving toward you in ways you cannot yet see. Stop doubting, stop chasing, stop fearing. You are the operant power. The love you desire is not outside of you, it begins within you. And once you truly believe you are worthy of deep, undeniable love, they will feel it. They will feel you. And that unexplainable pull will become impossible to resist.